Oren of the Manhattan Institute, and he writes for the City Journal, and this is a piece that he had in the New York Times. It's called The Misguided Priorities of Our Educational System. Caught my eye when I was looking at the Manhattan Institute City Journal piece, and I wanted to get him on before the end of the year. We usually have Oren on, who's a regular guest, and I want to welcome Oren to the show. Oren Cass, welcome to the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me.
This is really nice to have you on. Thank you for coming on. I know everybody's on vacation this week, but this caught my eye about the misguided priorities. Why won't you share with our listeners what this article's about?
Sure. The article's about what we try to accomplish with our education system and how we chose this path of essentially what we call college for all, which is that we treat a college degree as the ultimate goal, and we changed our high schools around to pretty much be college prep, and we said everybody should try to go to college, and we took all of our money that the government spends and put it toward trying to support people in college, and that's great for the people who actually graduate from college, but fewer than 50% of Americans even earn a community college degree these days. So most Americans don't ever earn a college degree, and yet that's where all of our attention and support goes. And that's really backward, because those are the folks who are likely to have the best outcomes, maybe earn more money in their lives in a lot of cases. And yet for all the people who really need more help and who we should be focusing our attention on, we don't have anything. We just say, sorry, you didn't make it.
Well, I think America now, and in some states like West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, there's a priority where the education system coming through the governor's office or Department of Education's, where they're really focusing on, like my generation years ago, more like a vocational kind of college, technical college. And a case in point, which is doing extremely well, is a Blue Ridge Technical Institute in West Virginia, which caught the eye of the company known as Procter & Gamble. And one of the big decisions of them moving one of their first factories, they built one in Cincinnati, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 80 years ago or so, was that they can get these type of students who are not academically inclined to become MBAs or IT, but more in the blue-collar realm, vocational realm, as we used to say. And that's how we, in my generation, Oren, there was vocational high school and academic high school. You went to one or the other. You either became carpenter, bricklayer, whatever, or you became, you went into the sciences, and further on. But I think people are redirecting the educational dollars statewide. And you're right, on the federal level, I think it's totally misappropriated.
Well, you're right. There are some great examples now, and I think West Virginia is one that's cited a lot. Kentucky does very good work. North Carolina, some parts of Michigan. There are places that are doing really interesting stuff, and that's a real reason for hope. It shows that we can do this another way, and really it's less of a policy problem of not knowing what to do, and much more of a cultural problem of helping parents and students understand that college isn't the right path for everybody, of helping politicians and leaders understand that just selling more and more college and now saying we should have free college for everybody, that's not what people want to hear, and that's not necessarily what's going to be good for them. There were plenty of problems with the system that we used to have, but the idea of offering more than one track is a really important one. People say, oh, we got rid of tracking, it's better now. But we didn't get rid of tracking, we just got rid of most of the tracks. Mm-hmm. We now have one track, it's called college, and if it doesn't work for you, you're stuck. And, it should always be the family's choice which track, or now people call them pathways because that sounds nicer, So it should be the family's choice which pathway their student should be on, but we owe people a choice, and if anything, we especially owe the folks who are going to be less likely to succeed in college a really great pathway where for less than we spend on college, we can give them really good technical training, we can help connect them to a first job, we can even pay for some of their on-the-job training, and they can get to, you get to be age 20 and you could have real job experience, you could have a certification, you could have earnings in the bank, and that's a lot better than being a college dropout with a bunch of debt.
And not only that, the colleges today, they serve as incubators of more of a socialist type of anti-democracy or government incubator. And a lot of them, when they're towards completion, they want a free ride. They want somebody to pay the loan. So our success rate of what we're doing now, even without going into the technical realm, is pretty much failure. Would you agree on that?
Well, I think that's a really important point, that if you actually look through the system at, the huge share of students who start college but never complete it, and then even of the students who earn a degree, close to half don't end up in a job that even required a degree. And so when you actually look from beginning to end and you take into account, the kids who struggle to finish high school, the kids who don't go to college, the kids who go to college and drop out, the kids who complete college but don't end up with a valuable degree, it's really only about 1 in 5 who are actually going high school to college to career the way we think the system is supposed to work. And so, like you said, that's failure for everybody. And we tell the students who don't make it that they've failed, but that's not the failure. The failure is a system that we set up for the really pretty small share of students who are going to go successfully high school, college career. And then, we celebrate them and say, look how terrific that is, but they're the ones who were most likely gonna find their way and probably find a pretty good job anyway. It's the folks who that isn't the path for who we should be concentrating on.
Well, I'll give you the example with P&G, Procter & Gamble. They went to the institute and said, "We'll help you with the curriculum. We'll put the curriculum in place." And what they're looking, basically, they're looking for some technical workers, low-level, associate degree kind of program. They set the curriculum up for them, and they said if they get a certain mark or grade, whatever it is, a B or an 85 or something, that they would even subsidize that after graduation. They would pay back the student, through getting the job at their company. So it's a win-win. It's like a $2,600 or $3,600 tuition, which P&G will pick up. And they worked this with the institute and with the government. And believe it or not, one of the gentlemen who was instrumental in this was a Senate finance chairman, I think, in the negotiations of the state. And he himself is a blue-collar worker. He didn't want to go to college, but he's a blue-collar businessman who is a Senate finance chairman. I mean, it just goes to show you. I think his business or his industry that he's in is HVAC. Something like that, okay? And he's a Senate finance chairman. He didn't need an MBA. He didn't need an accountant degree. Oren will agree on this also, I believe. The people on Capitol Hill, they're either attorneys or accountants for the most part, okay? Just like the FBI, it's attorneys or accountants. And we can't balance the budget in this country.
Well, I mean, I think that it's two really important points you made there. One is about Procter & Gamble as an example, which is that having employers involved in this education process is actually really important. One of the things that we've learned through a lot of efforts at policy programs is that if you try to do job training without the employer, if you just try to have the government do the job training, it doesn't work. And so having the employers involved, having them help explain what the curriculum should be, having them ready to hire the graduates is really important to this system. And by the way, it's the way the rest of the world does it. I mean, if you look at Europe, most European countries think what we do trying to get everyone through college is crazy. In most developed European countries, at about half, even more than half of students go on this other kind of pathway where they start working with employers much sooner. and it helps get them into a good job. And then the other point you make about the Senate Finance Chairman is that, like you said, it's not like you need a college degree to be successful necessarily, or that everybody who's successful in life has a college degree. And we've created that feeling in this country because we don't have other good pathways. But again, if you look at other countries that do have good pathways, one of the results you get is that you start finding lots of really successful people who came down those pathways, and you find that companies hire them. They move up. They become part of management and the boards of directors and the politicians, and so you get a much healthier society where the people who are running things aren't just all the ones who made it through that college track, but that everybody realizes that there are plenty of tracks that are perfectly acceptable and appropriate and deserve respect and can make sense for different people.
Yeah, I agree with you totally that the companies should be involved, especially when they go to various states for tax benefits, or there's all kinds of benefits on the tables for the larger companies, and they can get involved with the state government, and they can get involved with the curriculums to say, hey, we're looking for 180 of these or 1,800 of these, and we want to be active and in getting the program in place that instead of just, the educational system say, well, I think you need this curriculum, the company could say, well, this is the curriculum we need. Let's work together on it. Your teachers or your professors in the classroom and get that across to the students where it's a win-win for both the state, it's a win-win for the employer, and it's a win-win for the employee.
Yeah, and what you find a lot of time is that part of the key is that less of the learning should happen in the classroom. That a lot of times the best learning is on the job learning.
On the job, absolutely.
And so, we have, whether it's in our community colleges, in our technical high schools, those are really good places to learn the basic skills, the theory behind how these things work, to understand what the processes are. But that's not the same as actually learning how to do a specific job, learning how a company does things. For a lot of people, even just learning what it means to have a job and go to work every day. And so the key is to build that combination where students can be spending some of their time on the job with a company, learning how to actually do things in the real world, but then also have
we used to call that
in the classroom.
We used to call that apprentice in the old days, being an apprentice on the job. Now, you also say the first student can access more than $10,000 annually in public funds to support his college experience, but federal funding for higher education has grown 133% in the past 30 years. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the imbalance, and, today we spend between federal and state government about $150 billion a year supporting college. Wow. And so that's, direct grants to students to cover their tuition. It's all of the money that goes into the state college systems. It's subsidies for loans. It's tax breaks, all of that stuff to try to get people into college and to try to cover the cost of college. And then you turn around and you say, well, okay, what are we spending on a vocational pathway? And the federal government spends $1 billion a year on that.
Wow.
And actually, that amount's been going down. It hasn't. It's been a fixed amount that didn't go up with inflation in recent decades. And so it's not just that we're not doing enough for a vocational pathway. It's actually that we haven't done anything for it, and really tried to shift resources away from it. And so I think what we have to start thinking about over, you don't just move all that money in 1 year. No one would know what to do with it. But if you said, gosh, over the next 10 years, we're going to spend less of this money on college students and more on building another pathway, then I think that would also help people make a better choice about whether to go to college. You'd say, I'm actually going to have to pay more of the cost of college myself. Is it worth it? Do I actually have confidence I can finish and that it's going to lead to a better job? And if so, then the cost will make sense. And if not, well, there's also going to be this other good pathway that's worth considering too.
Oren, have you or the Institute submitted some of this information to the U.S. Department of Education, which also has to be revamped? Go ahead.
Yeah, I speak with policymakers, both in the administration and in Congress, about the thing they're very interested in. The Trump administration has actually proposed what I think is at least a very good first step, which is to take our biggest federal program called Pell Grants, which is a big way especially lower income students can get up to $5,000 a year for college, but you can't get that if you just want to go to a shorter technical skills program. And so the first proposal they've made is to say, well, at least let's put the technical program on equal footing, and say if it's something you can use for college, it should also be something that's available for shorter technical programs. And so I think that's a good first step, but it's also something that people are very interested in figuring out how to do over a longer period of time and to make a bigger change. And again, I think what most people would say who are working on this in government is, we know what better programs would look like. It's much less a challenge of how do you design a good program, and much more a challenge of how do we talk about it? How do we have our American culture be one that celebrates different pathways, that respects them, and that recognizes that we should be helping students find the path that's best for them, not tell everyone to go to college.
Well, I think that's a great first step. And you're aware of a gentleman by the name of Ross Perot, correct?
Sure.
Well, people like Ross Perot have graduated from community colleges and went on to become very, very successful people without going to a 4-year college or graduate course. I think at best Perot might have a bachelor's degree after community college, but I think community college back in our generation was a whole different realm. I mean, you could have went to community college and come out and got a pretty decent job. I mean, one of my first jobs I had was a draftsman for J.C. Penney, okay? And I was right out of high school. So it was like a technical kind of job in a way, but we need to do it if we want to have companies survive in this country and to bring jobs back to this country and open up new businesses in this country. And I'm glad you're doing this kind of investigative reporting. And it's I like the Manhattan Institute. I like City Journal. And I like reading your stuff. And I hope to have you on again in the coming year on some more articles that you write.
Thank you. I'd love to